infamous troublemaker who'd been tormenting me for months. Dim light danced across the bookshelves as Maya lounged against the table, her smirk claiming the space like it was hers. "Guess it's just you and me, geek," she teased, her voice playful and hushed. My heart raced, not just from fear. There was something in the way she looked at me under the dim light, something unnervingly close. I should have stayed away, but then she stepped closer, and everything shifted. Earlier that day in class, the silence had been almost comforting, just the scratch of pens on paper and the steady tick of the clock. I kept my head down, absorbed in my calculus notes, until a sharp voice cut through. "Of course Lily knows the answer," Maya drawled from the back, her tone mocking. The class snickered as usual. Heat surged to my cheeks. Mrs. Callahan cleared her throat. "Maya, if you paid half as much attention as Lily, you might pass this class." The laughter faded into awkward silence, but Maya wasn't finished. "Yeah, being a know-it-all must be so much fun," she muttered, loud enough for everyone to hear. I ignored her, focused on the page before me, trying to disappear. This wasn't the first time she had singled me out, and I knew it wouldn't be the last. Maya thrived on pushing buttons, especially mine. When the bell rang, I packed up fast, hoping to escape before she could say more. But a shove sent my books sprawling across the floor. "Oops," Maya said, smirking as she leaned against the lockers. Someone muttered, "Guess your balance is as perfect as your grades," but no one stayed to help. I crouched down to gather my things, muttering under my breath, "Don't you have anything better to do?" "Annoying you," she replied, crouching across from me. I thought she might help, but instead she plucked a pen from my pile and twirled it. "You make it too easy, Lily." I grabbed it back and shoved it into my bag. "Whatever, Maya." Standing, she gave me one last smirk. "See you in calculus, nerd." I watched her stride away, radiating confidence. She wasn't just a bully, she was a storm, and I was always in the middle of it. Later, in Principal Harris's office, the coffee and lemon scent should have been soothing, but it didn't calm my nerves. I sat rigidly, backpack on my lap. Maya slouched opposite me, arms crossed, her leather jacket creaking as she shifted. "I think this arrangement will benefit both of you," Harris said, calm but firm. "Maya, your grades need work. Lily, I know you can help her." "You want me to tutor her?" I asked, stunned. "Exactly," he said, smiling. "Maya has potential but needs guidance. And Lily, you're the top student in your grade. There's no one better for the job." Maya scoffed. "Guidance, right? I'm sure Lily's thrilled to spend time with me." "This isn't optional," Harris said sharply. "Either you tutor Maya, or you'll both serve community service together." Maya muttered something but didn't argue further. I sank back, overwhelmed. My own grades and college applications suddenly seemed under siege. "Fine," I said quietly. "I'll do it." "Good," Harris said, dismissing us. "I'll see you in 2 weeks for an update. Good luck." Outside, Maya shot me a sideways glance. "Guess you're stuck with me, nerd." "Guess so," I muttered. We didn't speak again until the school steps. She popped a piece of gum. "So, when do we start this study club?" I asked. "Tomorrow. Library after school. Don't be late." She gave a mock salute. "Yes, ma'am." I walked away, heart pounding. This was going to be a disaster. She didn't care about school, I didn't care about excuses, and the only thing we had in common was our mutual unwillingness. But a gnawing feeling told me this was just the beginning. Something bigger, unpredictable, and entirely unavoidable. I arrived at the library early, the quiet only broken by rustling pages and the hum of lights. My notebook lay open, neatly outlined with the first lesson plan, bracing me for the battle ahead. I had made sure everything was simple, clear, and impossible to misunderstand. A glance at the clock told me it was 2 minutes past the hour. Of course, she was late. Just as I began to wonder if she would skip entirely, the double doors swung open. Maya walked in like she owned the place, leather jacket casually slung over one shoulder, a lazy smirk on her face. She spotted me immediately and dropped into the chair across from mine with a loud thud. "You're late," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "Relax, nerd." 2 minutes, she replied, popping a stick of gum into her mouth. "So, what's the plan? Recite the quadratic formula or something?" I pushed a worksheet toward her. "We're starting with the basics. You need to understand this before we move on." Maya stared at it as if it were written in another language. "Seriously? This looks like homework." "It is homework," I said, patience already thinning. "That's kind of the point," she said, leaning back and tapping her pen against the table. You really enjoy this, huh? Being all organized and perfect with your color-coded plan? I stayed silent, and her laugh, a low, teasing sound, made my cheeks burn. Okay, she said, finally sitting up. Let's get this over with. The next 30 minutes were a trial. Maya spent more time joking than solving problems, interrupting every explanation with a snide remark. It was like teaching calculus to a brick wall, one that smirked and chewed gum, pretending not to care. Then something unexpected happened. I handed her a simple warm-up problem, and she solved it correctly. At first, she just stared at the paper, stunned, then shrugged.
See?
Not a total lost cause, she said, smug but softer than usual. For a fleeting second, I thought I glimpsed something genuine in her expression, but it disappeared instantly. I moved on to the next problem, trying not to let the small victory distract me. After school, the hallways were packed. I tried to slip through unnoticed, frustrated from our session that had ended with Maya leaving mid-sentence. Hey nerd, a senior called, blocking my path. Always hauling those big books. What's in there? A cure for being a loser. Laughter erupted, and I hugged my books tighter, trying to walk past. Then his next words froze me. Or maybe a diary full of love poems for your calculus homework. Before I could respond, a sharp voice cut through. Maya stood a few feet away, arms crossed, pure disdain aimed at the senior. What's it to you, Valentine? Thought you didn't hang out with losers. Maya stepped forward, her leather boots clicking against the now silent floor. She's helping me pass calculus, she said coolly. Think twice before you mess with her, or don't. Your choice. The senior raised his hands in mock surrender.
Fine.
Whatever. Have fun with your little study buddy. He walked away, his friends trailing. The knot in my chest finally loosened. You didn't have to do that, I said quietly. She shrugged, expression unreadable. Yeah, well, I hate those guys. Idiots. But there was an unexpected protectiveness in her tone. Glancing at her phone, she sighed. Anyway, don't let them get to you. You're already way too uptight. Then she disappeared into the crowd. I stood there, mind racing. Maya Valentine had just offended me, the same girl who'd spent the past week making my life complicated. By the time I arrived at the library for our next session, my nerves were frayed. She was already there, leaning back like she didn't have a care in the world. You're late, she said, smirking. I had a rough day, I muttered. She raised an eyebrow but didn't press the issue, unlike before. Maybe this wouldn't be a complete disaster. Rain began to patter against the windows, slowly growing into a full storm. By the final bell, thunder shook the walls and streaked the library windows with water. Maya leaned back, watching the rain. Looks like we're stuck here, she said, nodding at the downpour. No way. I'm walking home in that. I glanced at the clock, nearly 5. The school was eerily empty, dimly lit except for the table lamp between us. You could have brought an umbrella, I said, tucking my notebook into my bag. No thanks, she said, smirking. I rolled my eyes, pulled out my phone, and realized I had no signal.
Great.
Trapped in the library with Maya Valentine during a thunderstorm. Exactly how I wanted to spend the evening. You're so tense, Maya said, breaking the silence. Relax, nerd. It's just rain. I ignored her, flipping through my notes, but the storm made it hard to focus. Thunder rattled my bones, and flickering lights did nothing to calm me. Do you always bury yourself in work when you're nervous? She asked, voice lighter than usual. I'm not nervous, I said, frowning. Sure, whatever you say. I went back to my notes, but then the lights went out completely, plunging the room into darkness. I froze, breath hitching as rain and thunder filled the library. Relax, Maya said again, her voice closer now. I hadn't even heard her move. It's just a power outage, she said, teasing. You've never been in the dark before, have you? Her tone should have annoyed me, but instead it felt oddly reassuring. I felt her brush past me, the faint scent of leather and rain lingering in the air. A moment later, the glow from her phone lit the space between us.
See?
Problem solved, she said, holding up the phone with a grin. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. Thanks. Don't mention it. She leaned against the table, half her face illuminated by the phone's light. So, what's the deal with you, anyway? I blinked, caught off guard. What do you mean? She gestured vaguely. Good grades. Good kid. No drama. What's that like? I hesitated. It's not as perfect as it looks, I admitted finally. There's a lot of pressure, a lot of expectations, it's exhausting. Her expression softened. Just for a moment. Yeah, I get that. For a few seconds, we simply looked at each other, the storm raging outside. Then she smirked, breaking the brief spell. You're not so bad, nerd. Maybe I'll actually pass this class after all. I laughed, surprising myself. Maybe. And for the first time, the storm didn't feel so overwhelming. The next day, Maya was late to class. Not surprising. Punctuality didn't seem to be her thing. What did surprise me was the flutter of nerves I felt when she finally walked in. Her usual smirk was in place, but she avoided looking at me. I told myself it didn't matter. Last night had been strange. We talked, really talked, and for a moment I thought there might be more to her than I'd realized. But now, under the harsh fluorescent lights of the classroom, it felt distant, like it had happened to someone else. Mrs. Callahan was mid-lecture when it happened. I raised my hand to answer a question when Maya leaned back in her chair, voice cutting through the quiet. Of course Lily knows the answer, she drawled, dripping with mockery. Laughter rippled through the class, and my stomach sank. I froze, hands still raised, heat creeping up my neck. Any progress from last night seemed to vanish in an instant. That's enough, Maya, Mrs. Callahan snapped, her glare sharp enough to silence even the boldest student. Maya shrugged and slouched further, and I lowered my hand, face burning. I didn't answer the question. I spent the rest of class staring at my notes, willing myself to disappear. When the bell rang, I gathered my things quickly, hoping to avoid her. But there she was in the hallway, leaning against the lockers with that infuriating grin. Hey, nerd, she said, falling into step beside me. Going to ignore me all day or what? I stopped, frustration bubbling. What's your problem, Maya? Last night you were.
I don't know, decent.
And now you're back to this. Her grin faltered for a split second, then hardened again. Relax. It's just a joke. Don't take everything so seriously. I searched her face for an apology, an explanation, anything, but all I saw was her usual indifference. Forget it, I muttered, brushing past her. Halfway down the hall, I heard her call out, soft and almost uncertain. Lily, wait. I didn't mean to. I don't know, whatever. It wasn't much, but it was enough to make me pause. I glanced over my shoulder. She was standing there, hands shoved in her pockets, looking strangely uncertain. I wanted to say something, anything, but the words wouldn't come. I just nodded and walked away, heart tangled in anger, hurt, and something I couldn't name. By the time I reached the library for our session, I wasn't sure I wanted her to show up. When she didn't, part of me felt relieved, and part of me disappointed. The library felt emptier than usual, her absence making the space strangely hollow. I sat at our usual table, notebook open but blank, frustration simmering. She was supposed to be here, and for some irrational reason, I had hoped she would show. By the time I left, my disappointment had turned into anger. She was impossible. 1 minute almost kind, the next smug and infuriating. I told myself it didn't matter, that she wasn't my responsibility, but the thought of failing her, of failing at this, felt like a personal defeat. The next morning, I was called into Principal Harris's office again. The dread returned as I walked in, but this time, it was just me, not Maya. Lily, he began, calm but firm. I know this tutoring arrangement hasn't been easy, but it's important that both of you take it seriously. I am taking it seriously, I said defensively before thinking. She's the one who didn't show up. Be that as it may, Harris said, I need you to make an effort to reach her. If this doesn't work out, both of you will face consequences. I wanted to argue, but it was pointless. I left his office feeling the weight of responsibility pressing down. I couldn't fail, not here, not now. At lunch, I found Maya in the courtyard, perched on the edge of a picnic table, legs swinging lazily. A small group of students hung on her every word, which only fueled my frustration. Maya, I said, crossing my arms. The group fell silent, their eyes shifting between us. We need to talk. She raised an eyebrow, amusement written across her face. What's up, nerd? Don't call me that, I snapped, surprising even myself. I waited for you yesterday. You didn't show. Maya sighed, standing and brushing off her hands. All right, fine. Let's talk. She led me away from the group. Her usual smirk had vanished, replaced by something unreadable once we were alone. I turned to her, words spilling out before I could stop them. Do you even care about this? About passing? About anything? Because it feels like I'm the only one trying here. Her expression darkened, and for a moment I thought she might lash out. You don't know anything about me, she said, crossing her arms. So, don't act like you do. Maybe I don't, I shot back, my voice shaking. But I know you're better than this. For the first time, she didn't have a comeback. She just stared at me, jaw tightening, then turned and walked away. I stood there, heart pounding, unsure if I had reached her or made things worse. The hallway felt colder than usual as I made my way to my locker. Our argument replayed in my head like a broken record. She made me feel angry, frustrated, and something else I couldn't name. I wanted to believe calling her out was the right thing, but doubt clung to me like a shadow as I opened my locker. A folded piece of paper slipped out. Frowning, I bent down to pick it up. My name was scrawled across the front in messy, hurried handwriting. I unfolded it and read the few words inside. I'm sorry I'm such a mess. You deserve better. The handwriting was unmistakably hers. My heart twisted in a way I hadn't expected. For a moment, I just stood there, staring at the note. It wasn't an apology, not really, but it was enough to make me wonder what she had been thinking while writing it. Why couldn't she say it to my face? The day dragged on, and by the final bell, I felt drained. I walked toward the library, even though I knew Maya wouldn't be there. Sitting at our usual table, I opened my notebook but hadn't written a single word. The room was quiet, the hum of the lights the only sound. My thoughts kept circling back to her smirk, her sharp words, the way she looked at me when she thought I wasn't paying attention. Infuriating. And yet, I couldn't stop thinking about her. The next morning, I overheard friends in the cafeteria. Their voices were low, but sharp enough to cut through the noise. I don't know why Lily even bothers, one said. Maya's a lost cause. She'll just drag her down. Yeah, another agreed. She's probably doing it on purpose. Maya's not stupid. She just doesn't care. The words stung more than I expected. Part of me wanted to defend her, but another part, still angry, wondered if they were right. I walked away, appetite gone. The note still in my pocket, I found myself clutching it without thinking. Whatever was going on with Maya, it wasn't as simple as indifference. I had glimpsed something deeper, something she didn't want anyone to see. By the end of lunch, I had made up my mind. I wasn't giving up on her. Not yet. But I wasn't going to let her walk over me either. If she wanted my help, she would have to show she deserved it. If not, maybe it really wasn't worth it after all. The next tutoring session began like a bad joke. I sat at the library table, half expecting her to blow me off again. My notebook was open, pen poised, yet my mind wandered. Every few minutes, I checked the clock, frustration rising. Then she walked in. Maya strolled in as if she hadn't left me hanging for days. Her leather jacket hung over her shoulder, the familiar smirk in place, but there was something different this time, something quieter in her presence. She dropped into the chair across from me, smirk faltering as she met my gaze. Before you say anything, she started, holding up a hand, I know I've been an ass. I raised an eyebrow, pen hovering over the page. You think? She winced, leaning back. Okay, I deserve that. But I'm here now, aren't I? I folded my arms, unsure whether to believe her.
Why?
What changed? Her smirk was gone, replaced by something I couldn't quite identify. I'm tired of feeling like a screw-up. Okay? And you're the only person who's ever tried to help me without expecting something in return. Her words caught me off guard. For a moment, I couldn't speak. She fiddled with her jacket zipper, the confidence she usually radiated replaced by a rare vulnerability. I'm serious this time, she added softly. I'll actually try. Just don't give up on me yet, okay? I studied her, searching for a hint of insincerity. But all I saw was someone genuinely trying. Slowly, I nodded, flipping to a fresh page. Okay, I said, steady. But you're going to have to work for it. Her grin returned, smaller this time, but real. The rest of the session was surprisingly productive. Maya still struggled, but she asked questions and actually listened. It was a far cry from the girl who had spent more time joking than learning. For the first time, it felt like we were making progress, not just with calculus but with each other. By the end of the hour, she had completed an entire set of practice problems on her own. She held up the paper, pride and disbelief on her face. Look at that. I might actually pass this class. I couldn't help but smile. You're not there yet, but this is a good start. She leaned back, stretching her arms behind her head. Thanks, Lily. Seriously? I asked, shivering slightly at the way she said my name, but pushing it aside. For the first time, I felt like we might actually have a chance, not just to pass calculus, but to understand each other. And for now, that was enough. The library was quiet except for us, the soft hum of the fluorescent lights and the faint scratch of her pen on paper breaking the silence. She was focused, brow furrowed, lips pressed into a thin line as she worked through another problem. Done, she said, finally dropping her pen and pushing the paper toward me. Tell me I got it right, or I swear I'm quitting. I laughed softly, picking up the sheet to check her work. A small smile tugged at my lips. You got it right. Her eyes lit up, and she pumped her fist in triumph.
Yes.
I knew I wasn't completely hopeless. You never were, I said before I could stop myself. Her grin softened, and for a moment, she just looked at me, dark eyes unreadable. The air between us shifted, charged with something I couldn't name. I quickly glanced back at the paper, pretending to double-check her work. You're blushing, she teased, her voice gentle this time. No, I'm not, I replied, though the warmth rising in my cheeks betrayed me. She leaned forward, elbows resting on the table. You totally are. It's cute. I froze, heart hammering. She was so close now, voice low and warm, and I didn't know what to do with the way she was looking at me. Like I mattered. Maya, I began, voice shaky, but she cut me off. You know, she said softly, I used to think you were just some perfect little robot. Always doing everything right, never making a mistake. But you're not, and I like that. I swallowed hard, pulse roaring in my ears. You like making me uncomfortable, I said, half joking. Her lips curved into a small, almost shy smile.
Maybe.
But I like other things too. Before I could respond, she leaned in, her hand brushing mine. My breath caught. Her scent, a mix of leather and something sweet, filled the space between us. It was tentative, soft, as if she weren't sure I'd welcome it. But I did. I couldn't resist. I leaned in too, and for a heartbeat, the world fell away. When she pulled back, cheeks flushed, her usual confidence replaced by something vulnerable, she murmured, sorry. I just couldn't help it. Don't be, I said softly, surprised at my own words. Her smile returned, raw and unguarded, and in that moment, I knew I didn't want to run from her. Or from this. The days that followed felt subtly shifted. Maya still attended our tutoring sessions, but the air between us had changed. It wasn't just the stolen glances or the lingering touches when passing papers. It was the silences that were no longer uncomfortable, the way she smiled softly, unguarded, unlike her usual cocky smirk. She remained sharp-tongued and sarcastic, but there was a warmth beneath it, a vulnerability that surfaced when she thought I wasn't noticing. I couldn't ignore how much I liked it, how much I liked her. One afternoon, after finishing her practice test, Maya leaned back, stretching her arms. You know, she said casually, you're not half as annoying as I thought you'd be.
Wow.
Thanks, I said dryly, though a smile tugged at my lips. I'm serious, she said, tilting her head. You actually care about people. It's weird, but I don't hate it. You're welcome, I guess, I replied. She laughed softly, her grin easing. Don't let it go to your head. But seriously, thanks for not giving up on me. Most people would have bailed by now. I studied her, seeing for the first time the effort she was putting into breaking down the walls around herself. They were still there, but not as high. I felt something shift inside me, a quiet recognition of the connection forming. I told you, I said softly. You're not a lost cause. Her expression flickered, unreadable, before she reached out and took my hand. You're too good for me, you know that, she murmured, voice soft. I started, but she shook her head, tightening her grip. I mean it, Lily. You're everything. I'm not. And I don't know what I'm doing, but I don't want to mess this up. Her raw honesty left me breathless. All I could do was stare, heart racing, then smile, squeezing her hand. You're not messing it up. Not even close. Her smile was small but genuine, lighting something inside me I hadn't realized was missing. The final bell rang, signaling the end of the day. I made my way to the library, anticipation knotting in my stomach. Today was her first real test since we'd started tutoring, and I was anxious to see the results. When I arrived, she was already there, leaning against the table, test paper folded in her hand. Her face was unreadable, but her foot tapped nervously against the floor. Well, I asked, setting my bag down. She held up the paper without a word. My heart pounded as I unfolded it. 78%. Not perfect, but miles ahead of where she had been. Maya, this is amazing, I said, grinning. Her lips twitched into a small, almost shy smile. It's not an A or anything. Doesn't have to be, I said, handing the paper back. You worked for this, and it shows. For a moment, she traced the edge of the paper, then met my gaze, soft, vulnerable. I felt like I couldn't, she murmured. But you reminded me that I could. She laughed softly. You're so annoyingly nice. And you're annoyingly stubborn, I replied. Guess we balance each other out. She stepped closer, crumpling the paper slightly as she brushed a strand of hair from my face. Or maybe, she said quietly, you're just really good at making me want to be better. You don't have to be better, Maya, I said, holding her gaze. Just be you. Her lips curved into a small, genuine smile. For a moment, the library seemed to hold its breath. Then she leaned in, forehead resting against mine. You're too good for me, she murmured. And yet here we are, I said, smiling softly. She laughed, a rare, beautiful sound that I wanted to hold forever. And in that moment, the world outside didn't matter. Whatever came next, tests, tutoring sessions, life itself, we'd face it together. For the first time, it felt enough.